Hi, I'm Professor Gordon Patterson, and I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the history of R. Evans Library. There's a saying that was published in the Washington Post about 20 years ago, that bad libraries build collections, good libraries deliver services, great libraries build communities. Florida Tech is blessed with a library that has built a community that has spanned multiple generations. It began on a day in May in 1961 when a slender woman named Eileen Hall was standing in front of a group of books when Jerry Cooper, the founder of Florida Institute of Technology, came into the room and said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I'm the librarian." And Cooper said, "We don't have a library." And Eileen Hall, this slender woman from Georgia, responded, "Mr. Cooper, if you don't have a library, you don't have a university." The genesis of our library here at Florida Tech began actually 2 years earlier in a visit to New Jersey, when Jerry Cooper went to meet with David Sarnoff, the president of the RCA Corporation, and Irving Wolfe, who was his chief research advisor. After the conversation, Sarnoff said, "Is there anything we have that you might want?" And Cooper said, "Well, we don't have any journals." And so a collection of IEEE and Physical Review was brought to Melbourne, Florida. And those were the journals, the books that Eileen Hall was arranging that May day. The library began with a few magazines and a couple of dozen boxes of books. By 1964, it was clear that if the university was to become an accredited institution, it would need a library. In fact, Jerry Cooper hired a consultant to come and give him advice on what this fledgling college needed to do to get full accreditation. He paid him, I think, a whopping sum of $100. And after the interviews and after the man had surveyed the campus, he said in good faith, "I can't take your money, Dr. Cooper, because I don't think you can get accredited without a real library." So Cooper set about that spring of 1964 to build a library. He went to the trustees, and the trustees said something that probably today would end them up in bankruptcy court. They said, "Go ahead and start your library and the money will follow." And the money did follow, and it came from a community. The Women's Club of Melbourne raised $20,000 for the library. And so by the end of May in 1964, a concrete pad had been poured, buildings, walls had gone up. There was no roof when the evaluation team arrived in Melbourne. Jim Rathman, who'd won the Indianapolis 500 and then started a Chevrolet Cadillac dealership here in Melbourne, had given the astronauts Corvettes to drive, and he said to Cooper, "I'll give you a white Cadillac so you can take those people that are inspecting the campus around in style." And so on a morning in May, the Cadillac drove up, and Cooper stood pensively in the expanse of that building without a roof as the advising team came. As they stood there was silence. Cooper told me that a bird chirped on the rafters, and then one of the men said, "I see a beautiful library rising here." In December 1964, Florida Institute of Technology received full accreditation. And in January of 1965, what was the Bartholomew Library was dedicated. Cooper had found a divorcee whose husband had given her a large settlement, and she'd promised to name the library in his behalf. Unfortunately, the money didn't come, and Cooper had to search for other sources, and he found another woman to help him, a woman named Florence Evans. Florence Evans, known as Flossie to her friends, had been instrumental in forming what became the Holmes Regional Medical Center. She'd helped start Melbourne's first library. She and her husband, John Evans, provided support. The money was raised and the library was paid off. That was the beginning of a true library on campus in what is now the Cooper Administrative Building. Flossie Evans went on to become the first woman trustee of the university, and in 1978 she died. In 1980, her husband John Evans, recognizing the need for a new, larger library, sold 144 acres to the DeBartello Corporation that is now Melbourne Square Mall. The proceeds from that sale became the Evans Library, which he named after his mother and his wife. The building was constructed in 1984, and the actual dedication of it came in January 1985. The library has transformed countless lives. We live in an age in which there is quite literally a tsunami of information. One can Google and find 10,000 sources on any topic. Libraries are where the life preservers are kept. Librarians are the people who teach us to swim. That saying that was written more than 20 years ago, that bad libraries build collections, good libraries deliver services, and great libraries build communities, is affirmed in the Evans Library. Names of libraries change, but the thread that a library represents in the fabric of a university is something that endures. More than 2,000 years ago, Aristotle wrote at the beginning of his Metaphysics that all knowledge begins in wonder. At Florida Tech, our library is a wondering place. The men and women who have devoted their lives to serving in that library, the countless generations of students who've come and studied and found careers and built futures out of days and nights spent in the library, form a community that is something that lives and will continue. Thank you for your attention.